Hello, everyone. Uh, Already you're gonna pull a knife on me? Gee, this guy. Uh, yeah, I don't know where he is again. Anyway, though, I am Kristoff N. Chester. This is from one side to the other. Weird little bugger. I mean, usually he waits until I insult him to pull a knife on me, but okay. Hello, Mr. Bishop. Hi, Sean. Hi, Tara. Um, yeah. So, no point in really gussying around. We're gonna be talking about ghosts tonight again, and something that's always struck me as weird. You ever notice that in North America, it's just ghosts? Really, in Canada, America, and Mexico, it's basically just a dead person. Sometimes they look like a shadow, sometimes they are pale or a white mist, but a ghost is always a ghost in North America. Um, that is not the case in basically the rest of the world. Every place else, every thing is actually some Arthurian legend, some ancient thing with tons of lore and backstory. And so, because I like to do things the hard way around here, uh, I decided we're going to talk more about foreign ghosts. We're going to talk about specific kinds or even characters. I have hair on my glasses. Anyway, that is the most obnoxious thing. I kept waiting for it to go away. um, yeah, we do use the word poltergeist here, but funny enough, most people use that wrong. But no, and since we don't have any distractions here for a change of pace, uh, we're just going to jump right into this. So, and part of me was reluctant to talk about this thing because there's no real subtle way to put this. We're going to be talking about a Japanese ghost first. And the problem with that is that, oh boy, there are a lot of them. It's kind of funny, actually. Japan is a pretty small country, but boy, howdy, is it packed with freaking history and culture and things like that. And then you look at it, and it's like, it's really not that big. Even comparing it to like other countries, because I know a lot of people say, well, America is a ridiculously sized country, Canada is a ridiculously sized country, Russia is ridiculously sized. Most countries are actually the size of what we would call a state, and that is true. But at the same time, that doesn't seem to stop them from having just as much. Oh, hi, Connie. Oh God. Uh, I'm just gonna be honest. The Grudge actually freaked me out when I was younger. The Ring, for some reason, I could not sit through it. It was just not interesting. I tuned out. Um, did they ever actually go through with that movie, The Ring versus The Grudge, or was that like a joke?
It was a joke.
Uh, anyway, though.
They won't say.
Hi, Mom. Yeah, Chinese ghosts can only move in a straight line like a chess piece. Um, but anyway, no. This is one of the oldest legends and folk tales of a Japanese ghost. And for the record, no, I do not speak a lick of Japanese. I can't even do the accent. Um, so I'm probably going to mispronounce this, but it's one of the most well known, at least by name. Like, you see this name come up in manga, animes, video games all the time. I'm talking about the Yuki Onna. Of course, to be fair, depending on what part of Japan or region you're from, the name actually varies very often. I got a list here. Yuki Musumi, Yuki Anago, Yuki Jiro, Yuki Anba, which means snow grandma, according to the translation, Yuki Furry Baba, and that's just the ones that are more common. Like, again, it's kind of interesting because there are people who joke about how in some deep southern towns, different parts of the town will be known by different names depending on who you ask, and it's kind of like that. This creature, it varies depending on where you're from. Now, its origins date back from the Muromachi period, which was around what we would call like the Dark Ages or the medieval ages of Japan, 1300s to 1500s. And the first time that it gets mentioned is actually in a poem by Sogi, the Renga poet Sogi, who made a mention of them because he claimed that they would follow him home when he was a child, growing up in the Ichi province, which is now known as Niigata Prefect, I believe is how it's pronounced. But anyway, he claimed he saw these creatures and they would like stalk him when he was a child. Now, the appearance of them is that they are usually a very feminine shape, almost always described as a woman, though there are stories of them being males, though they still look very feminine. They appear in the wintertime and only show up in the snow, thus their name, which I guess Yuki means snow. But yeah, they are... There's conflict here because in some stories they are an actual spirit of the winter itself. Other stories will tell you that they are the spirit of somebody who dies in a snowstorm. Which, by the way, people talk about bureaucracy. Holy cow. In North America, you die, you just become a ghost. Over there's paperwork, apparently. Depending on how you die, that's what kind of ghost you become. It's like, come on, man. I'm already dead. Can't it just be simple? No, it cannot. Like I said, I almost actually... Oh, hi, Dad. I almost just wanted to talk about Japanese ghosts by itself because, again, there's tons of them. There's lots of them. Hopefully they can't hear the children screaming out in the desert in the microphone. They were not noisy at all before this. Anyway, though. But anyway, sometimes they are dressed in what we would call pajamas or a nightgown. Other times they are described wearing kimonos, which is a very elaborate kind of... Would you say a kimono is a dress or a robe?
More of a robe.
Yeah, it's more of a robe. The kimono is more of a robe than a dress. But anyway.
Yeah.
And like I said, these are one of the most commonly referenced sorts of spirits that you will find in Japanese pop culture, which is interesting because there's not a lot to them as far as like their lore. They're mentioned quite frequently. I mean, like, literally you'll be reading some story of Japanese history and they'll just mention, oh, by the way, there was a Yukibana or a Yuki Onna. Again, depending on the region, you might call it something different slightly. Also, real quick, am I the only one who has trouble with Japanese names and words? They just don't roll off the tongue. You know what I mean? They always give me trouble. I always feel like I'm tripping up and saying it wrong. It's one of the reasons I actually don't like to talk about Japanese stuff on the show because I always get self-conscious. Yeah, a lot of people are saying robes. But anyway, there's really not a lot of lore of them. They're the soul of a person who dies in a snowstorm. You would not know this if you looked at their appearances in, like I said, pop culture. They are literally everywhere. They've been in hundreds of games. I'm not even going to count manga. Um, I'm not 100% certain of this, but supposedly there are a few episodes of even like Dragon Ball Z where like in the background there's a character that people jokingly say that looks kind of like a Yukibana. Um, but then again, I guess to be fair, a pale lady in a nightgown? I mean, okay, I'll believe you. I've never poured through the background of a Dragon Ball Z episode. Although now that I think about it, you know what? I bet you there's some interesting stuff hidden in those. Uh, they always say you should never look in the background of a Disney cartoon because a lot of times they would actually cheat in the earlier animations like Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty and Beauty and the Beast. And a lot of times to save time, they would actually just paint the colors over the people in the background. They wouldn't have faces or fingers. It's rather disturbing, actually. But anyway, these creatures are all over the place. Now, there are some legends where they do get a little bit more lore to their personalities, but those are much more recent, like the 1800s. In the older stories, they're kind of just nosy. They just are usually described as observing people. They'll follow you around and watch you. But they don't do anything. It's not until the 1800s that they are suddenly spiteful and vengeful, and they're jealous that you're still alive, and so they kind of do the siren thing where they try to lure you out into the snow and then like smother you. Or, you know, snow is frozen water. So if you're buried alive in snow, does that count as drowning? Yeah, Sean brings a good point. The Japanese have a very distinct culture, which is funny because the running joke is you can't tell the difference between Chinese and Japanese. Eh, I I'm proud to say that I can usually tell when something is Chinese or Japanese, unless it's more recent, because there has been a bleed of their cultures. But like older Japanese stuff is very distinct, as is Chinese. And I'm actually proud of the fact I can spot Korean writing easy. Don't know what it says, but I recognize Korean characters versus Chinese characters and Japanese characters. Um, but anyway, back to my point. Yeah, there's a weird shift in their personalities in the 1800s. In the 1800s, they're suddenly spiteful and vicious and will try to lure you out into snowy weather so they can bury you and kill you. Uh, and once again, uh, um, they kind of had a shift again in more recent pop culture from around 2000 back. They were remembered as being sad spirits, very melancholy creatures who were just sad that they died, and not necessarily aggressive. Um, some stories say, especially again more modern stories, say that sometimes they aren't even aware that they are dead, and like if you try to approach one, it'll try to talk to you and tell you about how it's lost and it needs help getting where it is. It doesn't have its bearings and stuff like that. Um, which again is a far throw from their other incarnations. Again, remember, when they first showed up, these were just weirdos who would like stare at you awkwardly or follow you around maybe. But they were never harmful. And then suddenly they're aggressive, murderous creatures. And again, around 2000 they suddenly shifted and were often described as being sad. Uh, Yeah, Sean does bring a good point. A lot of spirits in Japanese culture are just bizarre, weird things. There's a what's the umbrella that has a foot and like hops around?
I like that game.
I don't know what they're called, but yeah, no, they're. I think the term that they use is yokai or yaokai, which is just general spirit. Um, but those are not the spirits of. You're wearing green, so you were see through for a second there.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, there are some really strange ones. I personally, and this might be kind of controversial, but I'm going to say it. A lot of Japanese spirits aren't what I would call scary. They're surreal. They're very strange. Another example of them, and I can't remember this one's name, but it's the soul of a person who drowns, and so they literally haunt waterways, and will try to use a ladle or some kind of small bucket thing to put water into boats to make them sink so more people will drown because they're jealous and bitter that they don't get to be alive, which is a weird running trend. Earlier Japanese legends about most spirits, even the ones who are dead, they're not that bad. They are weird. They might bother you, but we really don't see them become murderous until, yeah, around 1800. Suddenly, after 1800 time frame, everything will kill you. Everything wants to murder you. Japan kind of became like the spiritual Australia for a little while there. Yokai is how it's pronounced. Yokai. Okay. Uh, yeah, some of them are weird. Well, now hold on a second, Sean. You say they look scary. The early CGI Japanese films. Is it the creature that's scary, or is it the CG? Because I've seen some pretty terrible computer graphics, to be fair. But anyway, back to my point. It is weird. You can see this kind of slope effect with the spirituality in Japan. The farther back you go, the more calm and not so bad everything is. Suddenly, 1800s roll around, everything wants to murder you. And you probably deserve it. That's another weird thing. A lot of these spirits, these yokai, they will justify their actions. They have this weird idea of, well, it wasn't fair that I was killed. We mentioned it earlier, the grudge is a whole kind of spirit of its own, a spirit that can't accept that it died because it feels it was unjust and unfair. And, obviously, when you've been wronged, what do? You go wrong other people, of course. Also, my back is killing me, so hold on a second here. We forgot about my back pillow. Anyway, though. Yeah, I can see that, Sean. It's a mixture of the CG and the bizarreness of their shapes. See, I feel bad because I took notes on this one creature, the Yuki-ana, when there are so many surreal and bizarre Japanese spirits that we could talk about. But I wanted something specifically dead because some of these spirits are really weird. Not all of them are ghosts, by the way, and I also want to clarify that because there's a bit of a weird thing with that. A spirit is not necessarily a ghost. A ghost is a type of spirit. A ghost used to be alive, now is dead. And this will come up later as well. But, yeah. Some of these yokai are really weird. Some of them are actually the spirits of an object that feels like it was misused or neglected. I want to say that's how you get those umbrellas with feet, if I'm not mistaken. But those aren't really a ghost, because, well, an object that feels neglected isn't really person who died, so I don't count that. But anyway, um, yeah, it is so weird. Because, again, it's kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? You know how a tree, you can cut it and you see the rings, and you can actually measure how much it grew by how thick the ring is, and also you can tell how old it is because of the rings and stuff like that. That's kind of how it is with Japanese culture. Because like I said before, the farther back you go, the more gentle and calm these supernatural forces are. It's only become they only become aggressive when you start getting into the more recent time frames. And again, I personally think this is mostly because of pop culture. Around 2000, a lot of spirits become way more, what's the word I'm looking for? Varied. For example, some legends will claim that the Yuki Anna can only be appeased with a blood sacrifice, that she's kind of a vampiric creature. Fun side note, some European settlers who came over there mistook stories of the Yuki Anna for succubi, which is a demon from medieval occultism and Christianity and stuff like that. Though, yes, I know. No, the word succubus is never mentioned in the Bible specifically, but still, it's from that region, it's from that extended lore, even though, no, a lot of specific names don't actually appear in the Bible. Though, if I'm not mistaken, they do mention it in the Quran, oddly enough. But I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that, children. Someone's going to quote me on that. I just know it. Did I just pick the pale lady? No, I picked this one because this is one that is very common nowadays. Is it because it's such a simple design, it would be easy to draw, so they added it to, like, a lot of manga? Because I've heard stories of how, like, manga artists are legendary for cutting corners. Not that I blame them, honestly. I mean, if you can get away with it, why waste the effort? You know, work smarter, not harder. Especially with the turnaround for manga is freaking ridiculous. You have these whole books that all have to be drawn, and most manga update monthly, I want to say. Like, oh yeah, I feel bad for these guys. And a lot of them get sick. Who was it? The
guy who did Yu Yu Hakusho.
Yeah, didn't he actually? He died.
No, he's taking a bunch of breaks.
Yeah,
Our audience will know him as Hunter x Hunter.
Yeah, the one who did Hunter x Hunter. I like Hunter x Hunter. Hated that ending. We need another season of Hunter x Hunter just to move past that horrible ending. Well, I mean of the anime, not the manga.
Yeah.
You know what you know what I mean. Like, 2 people will understand what I'm talking about. I sound like a complete lunatic.
That's why you say that's the person who did Yu Yu Hakusho, and be like, who's that? Oh, the guy who did Hunter x Hunter. Oh, I'm such a big fan.
See, I'll be completely fair.
And they pretend to know what they're talking about because, oh, Hunter x Hunter, yeah, I watched that.
Well, see, here's the thing. I'll be honest with you. I've maybe seen like 3 episodes of Yu Yu Hakusho. I mostly knew it as the show that came on Toonami, and it got replaced by Outlaw Star, I think. Which was cool. I liked Outlaw Star. I loved Outlaw Star. But yeah, no, who is it I'm thinking of? Berserk. Berserk's main artist. He apparently had a really bad medical scare recently, and I think he's taking a break.
Thompson just commented.
Oh, yeah. Toriyama, sadly, gone not too long ago.
Who's that?
Akira Toriyama, bar none, one of the greatest creators of our lifetimes, period. Even if you're not a huge Dragon Ball fan, like, you can't deny the impact he had on Japanese culture. And it's funny is, actually, I'm talking about how the way that a lot of these spirits are depicted has changed over time, and a lot of people point the finger for the more recent changes to manga. That we're seeing a shift, or we saw a shift around 2000, of a lot of these spirits that were dangerous and scary. They become much more widespread. Kitsune are a great example too. Um, Again, not a dead person. A kitsune is referred to as a fox spirit, and it's not kitsune. Kitsune. The e makes a sound. Um, they went from being mischievous to murderous to I can't say what they are now, and you know why. But no, a lot of people say that it's manga. Manga has been the driving force of the shift of how a lot of these spirits are depicted and how they behave in stories. Um, now, me personally, it's like okay, I can see that. I can see the culture shifting around 2000 because of manga, anime, stuff like that. What caused the shift in the 1700s? Was it visitors from Europe? Maybe, I don't know. I'm not familiar with the time periods of Japanese history because I know that the uh, Muromachi period was 13 to 1500. But I'm not sure what was the 17 to 1800 where we see the murder shift, the murder shift for so many of these spirits. Um, but like I said, they vary from region to region. But again, generally they stay the same in their personality. They're just called different things. Uh, my personal favorite is how in some regions they're literally they're called snow grandmas. That has got to be like the least threatening sounding ghost I've ever heard of. Like the snow grandma. What is what is it gonna do? Lure you out into a blizzard and give you cookies? Uh. uh well, no, hold on, Sean. When did the isolation end? That wasn't like 2000. That was way before that. Uh. Hmm. But yeah, back to my point. Snow grandma. That makes me think of a snow angel. You know what I mean? Of course, I grew up in Southern California. We never saw snow, so I never made snow angels. If we didn't like somebody in school, we would trick them into telling them to make a sand angel. And then they'd burn themselves because they would be on the ground in Southern California. Um, but anyway, yeah, no, the Yuki, and I feel bad just calling it Yuki because Yuki is always consistent. It's always snow something. But that's also a name. I've heard of people called Yuki or named Yuki. So it's like I want to call it Yuki, but it's also like, that's not really correct. Boy, howdy, my phone is just going off. Wait, is this? Oh, no. Okay, I thought it was Jesus, actually. Wait,
Jesus,
it was
yeah.
Jesus.
It was Jesus, yeah.
Anyway, though. But yeah, we're gonna definitely have to go back and talk more about the yokai in general, because boy, howdy, there's just a treasure trove. Um, but I wanted to mention this one because this one is actually a ghost by the traditional definition. It was a person who was alive, and now they're dead, and they stick around as a spirit. Um, but unfortunately, it's one of those funny things because you would think with all the pop culture references, all the movies that they're featured in, all the books, all the games, you would think that there's this huge mythology to them. Not really. They're pretty much, yeah, they're creepy, weird little spirits who appear in the snow that will like stalk you maybe and just watch you. And then they become murderous, siren type creatures who will try to kill you unless you give them a blood offering. And more modernly today, they're basically just like people. They're not really specifically anything. Um, but yeah. Now, another type of spirit, and this one is, I can already hear some people are going to say that this is cheating because this is less of a kind of spirit and more of a way to describe a spirit. Ironically, one of the most familiar names, everyone's going to know what I'm talking about. They'll recognize the name, but most people probably don't know what they actually are. And what I'm talking about is, of course, the poltergeist, or the noisy ghost, if you speak German. The term itself, poltergeist, is pretty much as old as dirt. It's always been a thing. But the first time that it was in print was actually in a newspaper from 1911, excuse me. 1911 was the first time that the word poltergeist was used to describe a paranormal activity in a French newspaper. However, there's this whole big argument about the origin of the word, and a lot of people point to the 1400s being when the word actually became a thing. Other people argue that it goes all the way back to Greek times, which of course gets into the whole argument of origin of language, because again, a poltergeist isn't like the Yuki Onna, who is a specific kind of spirit. Any kind of ghost can be a poltergeist because it literally just means it's a ghost that's making a bunch of noise, which is funny because poltergeists are more known less for the noise and more because poltergeist activity is defined as when a non-corporeal entity, a ghost, causes objects to move. Spooky ghost. That was a lot of fun, actually. We need to do more of those charlatan ghost videos. That was a lot of fun. You know, Sean actually brings an interesting point real quick. The Yuki Onna are kind of like the Fresno Nightwalkers of Japan. Everyone talks about them. Everyone knows exactly what you're talking about, but there's actually not a lot of information about them. Both of them are also tall, pale, not quite human figures, so there might be a connection there, actually. Who knows? But anyway, back to my point. Poltergeist is, again, it means noisy spirit, so it's a spirit that causes disruptions. And of course, the stories vary on why. Anytime you talk about a dead person, usually it boils down to they can't accept that they died, or that there was some injustice and they need, vindication, or they need, they were murdered, so they need their killer to face justice or something. Which is funny because it's like, if I died, that's exactly what I'd do for no particular reason. I would be that ghost that just is a dick to everyone just because it's like, I'm a ghost, what are you going to do to me? You're going to call Egon? I always feel bad because I love the movie Ghostbusters, but I can never remember their names. I can only remember Egon. But anyway, poltergeist activity today is classified as objects moving. Fun side note, actually, one supposed explanation, quote unquote, and I use this term very loosely, but one explanation supposedly for paranormal investigations that have poltergeist activity, get this, it's not a ghost, it's that somebody in the area has telepathy and doesn't realize it. So they're accidentally using their mental powers, because that's so much less ridiculous than the spirit of a dead person, right? That's something that bugs me about that. It's like, so it makes more sense that you can move a cup with your brain accidentally and not know that you did it than that a consciousness could somehow still function even without its body. From a purely sideline standpoint, I have to say both of those sound ridiculous. Like, that's not a suitable explanation. Um, but no, that's literally one way they try to explain paranormal stuff like that. That people have telepathy and they don't know about it. That's just trading one paranormal thing for another. Like, whatever though, okay, I guess. I mean, if you're trying to rule out ghosts, saying it can't be ghost works, I guess. But anyway, uh yeah, no, there are a dime a dozen stories. Something that always bugged me actually is probably the big reason so many people know the word poltergeist is because of the movies. But the movies aren't really all that much about poltergeist. I mean, yeah, the ghosts move stuff and they attack people, but they're more over the top ridiculous. I was actually disappointed the first time I watched Poltergeist, which by the way was on Monster Vision on TNT when I was a little kid, because I thought it would be all about like an investigation or something. It's like this is so over the top and so beyond what actually happens with paranormal stuff. I was like, wow, I'm kind of. I hope that this is fictional because being a paranormal investigator would suck if this is normal. Because actually, poltergeist activity is probably one of the most common reported forms of ghosts doing stuff. It's right up there with, hearing a whisper or feeling like you're being watched. Which I've always wondered, like, what is the most common paranormal thing? Like, what is the most common ghost activity? Because, I mean, there's a lot of ones that are very common, hearing thumps or moving around, which I guess is technically poltergeist. Even though, again, poltergeist is specifically objects moving. Yeah, I know, right? A ghost that makes a noise is technically not a poltergeist, even though that's what poltergeist means. Now, some stories will go so far as to claim that poltergeist can actually hurt you. There are stories of people being pushed or thrown, and there's arguments about is that poltergeist or is that demonic? There's degrees and levels, and nobody really has the same opinion. Everyone kind of varies. Personally, I think when the physical body is being injured, that's kind of going beyond a poltergeist level. Because again, for me personally, it's a power level. Moving an object is very, very different from like slashing someone across the chest, which is actually something that there was this house about like one street over from where I grew up, where the guy, one of the men who lived there, claimed he got like Freddy Krueger slashed across his chest. That house was literally across the street from the school that I went to, my elementary school. We had to walk by the house where somebody got Freddy Kruegered every day to go to school, actually. Yeah, Sean just mentioned some people say that scratches are poltergeist. Again, that seems stronger than what I would call a poltergeist, but that's kind of the cool thing about paranormal investigation is everybody kind of has their own levels, and everyone else is kind of looking for something different. You know what I mean? Which is, again, one of the things I think is actually kind of cool about it. You get a big, diverse cast of characters and people with that kind of thing. But anyway, I do kind of wonder though, do you think they called the movie Poltergeist because they thought the name Noisy Ghosts sounded dumb? So they just said it in a different language? I do kind of wonder why they picked that name though. You know what I mean? But yeah.
Could have just called it Noisy Bastards.
Now, Poltergeist, that was the one with the actual human skeletons in the swimming pool, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's what they say, yeah.
They claim that at least, yeah. That was like a cursed production. Everyone claims that all kinds of bad stuff happened in it.
Yeah.
But you know what's weird? Now that I think about it, I've never actually seen someone who was in the production. It's always like secondhand. I've never seen an interview from any of these people who actually were on the set and people claim they say, all this stuff happened. That would be really interesting to do, actually, to talk to someone that was there.
Yeah.
Ghost power sailing, this is just like Dragon Ball Z. No, we're not that. I'm not that bad. Not that ridiculous. Come on. I do love how like halfway through Dragon Ball Z, Toriyama himself was like, "Oh God, what was I thinking with power levels? I'm not even gonna mention them anymore." He just stops mentioning power levels pretty much when the androids show up. To someone who's never seen Dragon Ball, this is gonna sound like the most random shit ever. But at the same time, I also kind of anticipated that we would have Jesus here, just causing his usual disruptions. So I'm kind of running out of ammo here, actually. But
You should tell him to come up.
I'm wondering if is he still coming?
He messaged us.
Yeah, he mentioned that he's awake. Hold on a second. But anyway, while we wait for word on if Jesus is actually going to show up or not, I have a question. Why in 1911 did a French newspaper feature a headline in German? Like, I'm assuming there is a French term for noisy and ghost. So why didn't they just call it the French word? Why would they specifically use the German term? But anyway, see, I'm trying to find. Anyway, back to them though. Sorry, I got distracted reading something because that was painfully dumb. In my notes, not the Jesus saying something. Anyway, yeah, the whole poltergeist thing is as old as paranormal stuff. Yeah. Okay, that's a fair point, Sean. Yeah, like countries loan words over to each other all the time. That's fair. But anyway, yeah, I mean, as long as there have been people talking about spirits or anything remotely paranormal, we've had stories of poltergeist activity. Some people claim that the whole idea goes all the way back to the BC time frames, and I guess it kind of does. Maybe not the word, but I mean, people have always heard strange noises that they can't explain. And seen stuff move that shouldn't have moved, so okay, fair enough. But one individual, and I'm sure I'm going to mispronounce this, but I'll do it anyway. Frank Podmore was he was a psychiatrist, if I'm not mistaken here. And I say that because he wasn't really known for his work. He was known for his adamant skepticism. In fact, some people argue he kind of coined the phrase skepticism. Podmore, yeah. Frank Podmore? Hold on, I lost it.
Oh, is he part of a Starfighter squadron?
Frank Podmore, yeah, that was his name. No. Frank, that was his first name, Frank. Podmore. Podmore. That's literally the dude's name. And he was more known for his adamant skepticism. Anything at all that had anything to do with supernatural stuff, he would say was complete hogwash. And he was mostly known for his naughty little girl theory. First of all, why would you name it that? We are not going to take you seriously if your life work can be described as in an episode of... Yeah. Okay, fair enough, Sean. Yeah, in an episode dedicated to weird names and pronouncing foreign stuff, Frank Podmore shouldn't be a problem, but it is. Anyway, basically his naughty little girls theory is the claim that on a subconscious level, people like attention, and when they feel deprived of it, their subconscious mind will make them do things that they don't remember. So, for example, if you see a cup go flying across the room, you threw it, but your mind doesn't remember it. So you assume that it was something paranormal or supernatural. You ever notice that a lot of these Freudian psychiatrists and psychologists, they always hide their theories behind the subconscious mind? You know, the part of the brain that we can't interact with or directly measure or anything like that because, you know, it's subconscious. You know, isn't that convenient? It's one of the reasons I find Sigmund Freud so infuriating. It's like he spoke with such confidence, and people who follow his views, they speak with such confidence. It's like, okay.
The watermelon's blue until you cut it open. Prove me wrong. Here's a watermelon and a knife.
Yeah, no, it's like, okay, let's
They're so smart until...
But then it's like, okay, one, why would it matter then if a watermelon turns red when you cut it open, but you can't observe it when it's whole?
It's just so they can say they're smart.
It is. It's ego stroking. It is.
Like...
And Freud was particularly bad about it. I don't like Freud because he himself was the one who proposed ridiculous theories like everything is based on sex drive. It's not. He was just a pervert. And he justified his own theories to make his own perverse opinions okay. I think it's hilarious that the man who coined the phrase, every man wants to sleep with his mother, had an Oedipus complex. I wonder why he thought that. Guilty conscience, maybe? I don't know. But anyway, back to my point. Frank here was famous for being a super skeptic of anything, and he would pretty much... I'm willing to bet you that this Frank Podmore guy is like an ancestor to that one scientist who said that Bigfoot photos can't be real because the anus is not exposed. I think there's a secret family tree here, and we're just starting to uncover it.
That hairy man has cheeks. He's not Bigfoot. What was that? Not Bigfoot.
Obviously not. I mean,
Bigfoot
that's how you verify it's a Bigfoot. You see the anus. I don't know.
Bigfoot don't clap when he runs. That wasn't Bigfoot.
You know, no matter what happens tomorrow, I'll always be glad that I decided to do this show. Just because of the fact that I read that line about the Peterson footage can't be real because the Bigfoot's anus isn't exposed. I first read that while I was on the phone with my family, and I just died laughing.
It's not indicative of an ape at all.
It's not God, what was the exact phrasing? It's not indicative of a animal running from a predator. The anus is not exposed. Because when a predator is coming at you, the first thing you do is spread your butt cheeks, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry.
Man, I mean, all Joe Bob Jericho with their shotguns are running at Bigfoot. The Bigfoot's like, wait, I can't run until I spread my ass. Just grabs both cheeks, spreads it, and runs away, apparently. I don't know.
See, I've run from, like, do we want to count dogs as a predator? I don't know if I've ever run from a predator.
Well, does it matter? Did you spread your ass?
No, I did not. So I was like,
I've ran
I've
a few
never-
times. I don't think, oh man, I better pull them apart before before I run.
I have never actually seen somebody run trying to spread their butt cheeks.
I have not either. I've never even thought of it.
I didn't either
Until
until I read that line that was from a professor, and it's like I only hope he had a smile on his face when he said those words. But no, back to my point. That's the big thorn, in my opinion, for paranormal investigation, is you get these skeptics who refuse to hear anything but their own opinion, and then they hide their opinions behind things that you can't go against. You know, they especially again the psychiatrists and the therapists, they love to hide stuff in the subconscious mind, which by definition we can't interact with or really study. We can only theorize about it because it's subconscious. If it was conscious, it wouldn't be the subconscious mind anymore. You know what I mean? It's like it's the wet fire problem. You can't study wet fire because by definition, fire isn't wet. If the class don't. Oh, God. Also, real quick, the emphasis you put on those claps, by the way. Boy, howdy. Anyway, though. But no, Frank Podmore, yeah, he by the way, in case anyone's wondering, he was born February 5th, 1856. He passed away at the age of 54, 1910. Podmore. I'm sorry, that I don't know how else you would pronounce that name. But so when he died, do you think he became a ghost and was just like, "Oh, this is awkward"? But yeah, no, he was famous for pretty much anything he heard about supernatural. He would have to butt in and give you his opinion on it and how it was obviously not real. And of course, if he couldn't just, explain it away, he would fall back to, well, it was your subconscious mind controlling you. That was something he was very fond of. Again, some people argue he was the one who gave us the phrase skepticism. Which, by the way, real quick, I think everyone should be a skeptic. Because, you don't want to run off with, like a chicken with your head cut off and make a fool of yourself, obviously. But there also is a point where, yeah, you also need to stop and go, okay, wait, hold on. Am I being a skeptic or am I being in denial? Because I'm going to be honest with you, being skeptical about the annoying noise in the hallway being a ghost, that's perfectly fine. But if you see Casper run down the hall screaming, "Fuck your mother!" and you still go, "No, can't be a ghost," there's a problem. You know what I mean? It's like, skeptics are the most annoying people on the planet. And then you take, quacks, also the most annoying people on the planet, and then that's how you get Frank Podmore, who, yeah. Dr. Quack Podmore. But anyway, yeah, the poltergeist is another weird one. Because, again, it's probably the most common, at the very least it's one of the most common, kinds of paranormal activity that you can find. And everyone's taking a crack at trying to explain it. And it's kind of funny when you think about it, because it's like, it's such a simple thing. What is a poltergeist? Poltergeist activity is when an object is moved seemingly by someone who doesn't have a body. That's all it is. That's literally all poltergeist means. Unless you want to get literal, then yes, it means noisy ghost. But whatever. The point is, that's what poltergeist activity is. It's objects moving on their own. And again, just everything has been thrown to explain this. It's psychological. It's telepathy. Which again, I know I'm repeating myself, but I'm saying it anyway. You're just trading one paranormal thing for another. So what are you accomplishing when you say that poltergeists are just telepathy? And actually, to my wonderful viewing crowd, Oh God, Sean. To be fair, I haven't seen Casper quoting Evil Dead on camera, so I'll stay questioning ghost evidence. Colt is... Why is Colt watching this? Colt's still a little kid. This is not a children's show, Tara. Colt, why aren't you in bed or something by now? No, wait, actually, they're... I guess it's not that late over there. They're like 1 hour ahead of us. It's only about almost 9 o'clock there. Sorry, anyway. But yeah, the poltergeist is a weird one. And it kind of falls into that same group with like the Fresno walkers we were talking about. The more you bring it up, the more adamantly people just try to put their heel in and say, no, it has to be something else. But back to what I was going to ask, audience, you tell me. In all sincerity, there's no judgment here. We're just asking for an opinion. Which one are you more skeptical of? The existence of ghosts or the power of telepathy? Which one are you, again, to be clear, which one do you think is less likely to be real? Which one are you more skeptical of, ghosts or telepathy? Because I'm going to be honest with you, personally, me, it's kind of, I'd put them in the same level, honestly, but I guess if I had to pick one that I'm more skeptical of, I guess I'm more skeptical of telepathy, personally. But again, I would put them in the same category myself. But I'm just going to be a jerk here and say, yeah, no, which one do you think is less likely to be true? Wait, we have a message from Jesus. Oh. Oh dear, he's hurt. Okay, yeah, so Jesus will not be here.
Did he shoot himself in the foot?
He did not say that. He's just mentioning that he's having problems with leg cramps. So...
Yeah, he shot himself.
Most likely. Let's be honest here. Most likely he shot himself in the foot. But... So watch, he's actually... You know... Oh, see, my siblings agree with me that telepathy is the less likely one. No. Why aren't you in the chat, Jesus?
Well, the thing about telepathy is somebody tells you you're dumb and you believe it. The thing about ghosts is you yourself are dumb and you believe what you make your mind up to believe. If you're a skeptic. If it's true, then you actually see something.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, either way, you're dumb.
Oh. Well, I mean, you're kind of creating a trap here, but yeah, I get what you mean.
Well, unless you believe, then you don't know you're dumb. Or unless they're true, then
you're
right.
Jesus has to come and be on the show to verify that the Mothman didn't beat the tar out of him on his last trip to West Virginia.
Oh, so he's going to show us where he shot himself in the foot? It wasn't Mothman.
No, Sean brings a good point. Jesus, until you come and verify what happened, that it's your leg, we don't know. It's as much a possibility that Mothman beat the crap out of you. Ripped his... Well, hold on, Sean. Saying a bad trip to West Virginia is a redundant statement. If you're going to West Virginia, it's a bad trip. That's kind of the definition of West Virginia. I'm pretty sure that's literally what West Virginia translates to. Bad trip. I'm sure it's in Oxford Dictionary or something like that. I'm sure it's somewhere in there. But anyway, we're going to wrap this one up by talking about one last kind of spirit. And I've been putting this one off because we're going to have a little bit of an uncomfortable conversation to just explain what the hell this one is. I wonder if Mr. Bishop is still in the chat. I hope he is. I'm not saying that out loud, Sean. Anyway, though, this is something that like Mr. Bishop would actually, I feel like Mr. Bishop actually would chime in on and know a little bit about, just because this is kind of something in his territory. We're talking about the jinn, or jinn, depending on what part of the world you're from. Which, by the way, yes, that is actually true. Jinn and jinn is tomato tomato. They are the same thing. It's just in different regions because of different accents. Some people call them jinn, some call them jinn. And then some weird SOBs put a D in front of it and then say the D is silent. I've always wondered, if a letter can be silent, why can't it be invisible? I hate silent letters. But anyway, the jinn, and I'm probably just going to call it that because it's easier to say than jinn. But anyway, a jinn is actually a blanket term. It just means spirit in Arabic. Excuse me. Trying to use the correct terminology. And the thing is, though, a lot of people have misunderstandings about the jinn because, how do I put this? It's like all ghosts are a spirit, but not all spirits are ghosts. Jinn just means spirit. You can have lots of different kinds of creatures be a jinn. Blame the French. Yeah? Yeah, well, I mean, it's never a bad time to blame the French. But anyway, there's a lot of misconceptions about jinn because, again, technically speaking, people are half correct. For example, a lot of people will say that, well, a jinn is another word for a genie. No. Genie are a type of jinn. They're a type of spirit. But to say that a jinn means genie is incorrect. It would be like saying, well, Bob is a human, so therefore Bob's name is human. No, Bob is Bob. He is a type of human. He is a human, but that's not what you would call him. But anyway, back to my point. Some types of jinn are the souls of dead people. They are what we would call a ghost. Now, what's interesting is that in many of the traditions, the type of jinn we're talking about, a ghost of a dead person, is someone who is being held accountable for their deeds. It's a punishment in Islam to become a jinn. But what's interesting is that in the Muslim culture, they'll even specifically state that a jinn is a threat to everybody. Because much like the Yuki-Ana in the 1800s, jinn are viciously nasty SOBs. They are brimming with hatred and anger towards the living. Mostly because, again, if you ask the Muslims, they are cursed by God. What's interesting, though, about the jinn is that they predate Islam. The terminology is actually seen way back in BC times. I mean, before any of the Abrahamic stuff. The terminology was being used way, way back as far as we can find any evidence of people at all in the Middle Eastern, Mediterranean region. And yeah, it's interesting because the jinn are super, super integrated into Islamic culture. Like literally looking through notes about them, you cannot take 2 steps without finding information about different terminologies used for them. For example, there are specific things you're supposed to call them if you are Muslim and if you're not Muslim. Personally, I don't care. They're jinn. That's the word. I'm not going to go out of my way and call them... Where is it? I had it just a second ago. Don't you hate when you look up from your screen and the screen has changed and you swear it wasn't you who changed it? But But yeah, no, there's literally different terminologies that you're supposed to call them, which I always thought was a dumb thing. It's like, well, wait, hold on. So if I'm not a Muslim, I can't use this word. But I'm not Muslim, so why would I care about the rules of a Muslim religion? You know what I mean? It's like, why would you care by definition? But anyway, their stories date back as far back as people have been in the area. But they are sometimes described as shapeshifters. Some stories will tell you that a jinn can be good or bad, but again, we're specifically looking for the spirit of a person who can't go on to the afterlife for one reason or another. And these are the nasty ones. They have shape-shifting powers and are very fond of venomous things. Like they'll turn into a serpent, or they can make themselves look like a scorpion. In more modern times, another supernatural phenomena that has kind of been absorbed, pulled into Islam, are the black-eyed children. Supposedly, jinn will often take the form of a child. And this is usually seen as them mocking the idea of purity. Because, I mean, what's more pure than a child, right? So they mock the idea of purity by looking like a child. But the problem is when you are an evil spirit, you can only hide yourself so much. And, yeah, their eyes are black. Just darkness inside their skull. There are some stories that say they can't talk also. That if they open their mouth, all you hear is like the sound of metal clacking or clinking together like a battle. But they are pretty gnarly creatures. Our friends over at Nuke's Top 5, when they actually bother to frickin' put up a video, they have tons of Middle Eastern stuff, and those jinn are pretty gnarly dudes. Another common one is that they always look angry, like they're always snarling. Which is another weird one. Yeah, how would that be? Like, congratulations, you're a spirit. You can only snarl. You're just like, I'm stuck like this? That sucks. But no, they are supposedly very dangerous. They can hurt you. There's this big misconception about how, oh, a jinn can't kill you. That's a genie. And yes, they can. And it's even funnier because actually, no, that's a specific genie who can't kill a person. That was the terrible blue genie couldn't kill. Other genies, there's lots of genies who kill people. What are you talking about? But anyway, the jinn very much can hurt people. And most of the Muslim tribes, denominations? I think that's the correct term. Anyway, most Islamic religion will tell you that you don't just need an exorcist to get rid of a jinn. You need a specific kind of exorcist. It's kind of like how in Catholicism there's exorcist is a kind of priest. Not just any priest can do an exorcism. It's like that, but one step further. Exorcist is a specific kind of priest, but then there's a specific kind of exorcist who can actually deal with a jinn. Because remember, to become a jinn, you have to die and you have to anger Allah in such a way that, you know what? You don't even get to go to hell. Hell would be a benefit. You have to remain on earth. Which, what does that say about the Muslim hell, by the way, real quick? Just going to throw that out there.
Interesting point.
It's like the Mormons, they have a specific kind of hell. Yeah. Have you ever seen that ridiculous video of the cartoon explaining Mormonism? Mormon Jesus and Mormon Satan? Anyway, it's a ridiculous thing that became a meme. Anyway, though, back to my point. No, jinn are extremely dangerous inside and outside of Islam even. Because again, like I said, we have writings that specifically say jinn before we have writings specifically saying Islam or Allah. I think that's how you pronounce it, Allah. Anyway, though, I know it's not Al. But anyway, these creatures have always existed. They've always been in legends and stories. And again, it's kind of hard to approach them because, technically speaking, if you go and you look up, okay, I want to know about jinn, you're not just going to get the ghosts. Anything that is a spirit of any kind, anything that doesn't have a physical body.
Or like Qui-Gon Jinn.
No, he spelled it differently. His was G-I-N. Majin Buu. Well, no, because it's spelled J-I-N-N. There's two N's. And now I'm actually thinking about Qui-Gon Jinn was not spelled that way. I think. And of course, then there's also the alcohol gin.
Well, that's G-I-N.
Yeah.
I know how to spell that one.
Oh.
Of course I would.
You are just a firecracker tonight, aren't you? Sean says that we need to get a bunch of these cryptids and spirits and have them fight to determine a tier list of power.
I'll get a spirit named Jen.
No, you will not. Anyway, though, because again, like I said, if you look up just the word jinn, it's anything that doesn't have a body. Which, by the way, I'm going to infuriate anyone Islamic that might hear this. I'm going to say it. If you want to get really technical about it, Allah, God, is a jinn because he doesn't have a physical body. He's a spirit. What's that ominous glow out in the distance?
Oh my gosh!
I'm kidding, though. But no, it is kind of difficult to approach this, which is a shame because it's a very interesting topic in my opinion. Yes, I know. I've heard people. I've had people complain. It's like you're mean. You're meaner to Islam than you are to Christianity. Well, yes, that's because if I say something and make a joke at the expense of Christians, I keep my head on my shoulder. I've never been threatened with any kind of harm from a Christian. I have from Muslims, though. It's one of the reasons I kind of wish that Mr. Bishop was still commenting, because he'd have my back here. He would defend me about this. He's never been afraid of insulting people in the chat. It's one of the things I like about him. But anyway,
Sure.
it is difficult to approach this creature because, again, it's like if you said you were going to talk about spirits. It's like, well, okay, what kind? There are lots of them, and just getting to the ones that are the ghosts of the dead is, buried under layer under layer. Interestingly, there was an account, and this actually happened. This was, I believe it was actually Iraqi freedom. This happened in Iraqi freedom. There was a group of U.S. soldiers who were observing this little town. No, this is a thing. This is a true story. And they were observing it because they knew there was a cell operating in this town. And they were like, well, we can't just go in there guns a-blazing because there are civilians in this town. We have to observe it, figure out if we go in there, who's our friend, who's our enemies. And supposedly, one night they were observing the town, basically doing a stakeout, watching with infrared goggles. And they saw this figure walk towards the town. And then the figure literally fell apart. The figure's arm dropped off from their body, the head rolled off its shoulders, and it still was just wandering into town. And the soldiers are sitting there like, Sarge, there's a man that's not there, right over there, and he's literally falling apart. They did
Fucking hippies.
probably they didn't know what to do, but here's the thing, they kept watching, and this figure appeared multiple times going back and forth in and out of the village. And again, it showed up as blinding white. So it was super, super hot on the infrared. And it would start out as a human shape, but it would just, parts of it would fall off. It would never stop and like pick up its pieces. It would just keep walking, and eventually it would fade away. Well, supposedly several hours later, after they had seen this thing go back into the town, they reported hearing gunfire come from inside the town, and they decided in the morning they would make their move, and they approached, and they found what they described as a bloodbath. Apparently, according to civilians that they found, yeah, they claimed that no, there were jinn, and they attacked some people here because the people were disrespectful to them. And the jinn supposedly literally just ripped these guys apart, which has got to be one of the most awkward situations. It's like, okay, there's the enemy. We're going to attack them. Oh my. What do you do when your enemy is being attacked by jinn? It's like, are we on somebody's side here? Do we go in there? Like, are we going team jinn? Or
We save the bullets and the manpower?
do we just let them fight? Like, what do you do? What do you do, Sarge? What is the order when you see jinn ripping enemy soldiers to pieces?
You gonna leave this to the Lord? Let's back off. I don't know.
I'm not sure what I would do either.
I wouldn't go in. I was like, no.
Oh, Sean caught you. Sean caught you making Majin Buu reference.
Oh. Nice.
But no, supposedly, yeah, jinn are very dangerous. The whole thing about how they can't hurt you. Yes, they can. They can, and they want to. They are aggressive spirits specifically. I've always wondered, are they called something else then if they aren't bad or mean? I assume so. But yeah. They have always been there in Middle Eastern culture. And again, it's kind of a problem because, well, yeah, it means spirit, not specifically any one kind. So, but what's interesting is actually from as far back as 2004, which, by the way, in case you feel youthful, that's 20 years ago. There was a sudden surgence of movies in the Middle East about jinn. Middle Eastern horror became a whole genre of its own, with dozens of movies all about the jinn. In fact, there was one. Actually, here, I have it here. Since 2004, so over the course of 20 years, there have been 90 plus films specifically with jinn as a monster. So, yeah, around 2000, around the time of Operation Iraqi Freedom, actually, suddenly these creatures became popular. Jinn horror is its own genre nowadays. Yeah, that's literally a genre now. Jinn horror, which honestly sounds like something you endure when you go on a bar crawl, is a genre itself that has surged in popularity, and a lot of people actually point to this isn't funny, but I'm laughing anyway, to Iraqi freedom being a big reason. Iraqi freedom kind of put everyone's focus back in the Middle East, and so people learned about the culture of Islam and stuff, and hey, you know what we do? Make a horror movie about it. See, to be fair, I think a djinn could be a good monster for a movie. I mean, it's basically just an evil spirit. So, could you be a smartass and claim that the Evil Dead movies are about jinn? No, you wouldn't say that? No, I guess. Oh, I think you'd be being a bit loose with the definition. But see, I say that now that there's like 90 plus films with probably by this point, because this information, who knows how many years ago this stuff I was reading about was written. There's probably well over 100 movies now with jinn for monsters. But I bet you they'd be I'd be willing to bet at least a couple of those has got to be decent. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I can't name any movies from the Middle East.
The Bicycle Thieves, but that was from the 70s.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. I don't think I've ever seen that movie, but I know the name. I know the Bicycle Thieves. See, I'm trying to think now.
About the Green Revolution that I watched.
That was a documentary, though.
That was, yeah.
I'm talking about movies. Like, can you name any movies
From the Middle East?
made in the Middle East?
From 2004?
Well, in general. Because I'll be honest with you, I can't think of anything. And I'm like straining. I'm trying to think of it.
Iran used to have a film industry.
Yeah.
They had the Bicycle Thieves. They had that one movie where all I remember is... Yeah, no, I can't.
Now,
I've seen like 3 or 4.
you should be honest. Lawrence of Arabia was not filmed in the Middle East. It was actually filmed in Hollywood, in a backlot, wasn't it?
I believe so, yes, or at least most of it.
No, Sean is saying it was Middle Eastern film.
Let me look it up.
Yeah, Lawrence of Arabia. And since you're a cinema guy, would you agree that Lawrence of Arabia is one of the greatest movies ever made? Everyone claims that Lawrence of Arabia is one of the greatest films ever made.
I have actually not seen it. And I have never seen Citizen Kane. Or the big one that shocks everybody, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Woo-hoo.
Never,
Not seen it.
not a big fan of it. I'm not a big fan of it, actually. Yeah, where was Lawrence of Arabia filmed? One of my favorite movies of all time was The Egyptian, which I believe was actually filmed in Egypt.
Filmed in Jordan, Syria, and England.
Oh, so it actually was a Middle Eastern film.
Yeah. See, I've not actually seen it. Ironically, none of Casablanca was filmed in Morocco.
Yep, I know that one.
But many classics were, such as Lawrence of Arabia, Alfred Hitchcock's The Man Who Knew Too Much.
Huh.
Star Wars was filmed in Tunisia. The desert scenes were shot in Jordan and Morocco and Almeria.
On like the scenes with Tatooine?
No, Lawrence of Arabia.
Oh.
Tatooine was Tunisia, I believe.
Oh. Because you said Star Wars, and I was like, wait, no, they went to Georgia. They went to the Middle East for Star Wars.
Where was Tunisia?
Where was Tatooine filmed?
Most of Tatooine was shot in Tunisia. Crucial scenes in A New Hope were filmed in Death Valley.
Mm-hmm.
So it was mostly filmed in Tunisia, except for like the long scenes that it would take like several days to film.
Yeah.
They were filmed in Death Valley.
Okay. Sean brings up a good point. It's not that they don't exist. It's not that there aren't Middle Eastern films. It's just that it's not a big market with America. Same way with Russia, which I have to acknowledge. Old movies about folklore and mythology made during the age of the Soviet might be one of my favorite genres of movies. I hate to admit it, but I do really like a lot of those films made by the Soviet. Sword and the Dragon, Jack Frost.
Jack Frost. That's a great one.
That's what I'm saying. That's like lost Soviet folklore films is like one of my favorite genres.
I mean, Strike, not really my thing. Battleship Potemkin, I've only seen like 4 Soviet films.
See, I can only name 2 off the top of my head because I know for a fact that they are.
Sword and the Dragon, Jack Frost, Strike, and Battleship Potemkin.
Yeah, those 4. Another super obscure genre.
I've seen the Blue Light.
Have you seen the North Korean kaiju movies?
No.
Oh, there's a whole story there. There's an episode we need to do.
I've seen the Blue Light and Triumph of the Will. For anybody who knows what those movies are.
I have not.
No, I've not seen the North Korean kaiju films.
Bollywood is another example.
Indian.
The India market of films, which is hilarious because like you have these American studios like Disney is infamous. WWE is another example. Now TKO.
This Wandering Earth was really good, and I'm not going to watch the 3-Body Problem from China.
Yeah.
Well, 3-Body Problems from America. The books are from China, and I know enough about those books. I'm not reading those.
Anyway,
I'm sure they're great.
Yeah, but no, Bollywood is a huge market for films. Disney, TKO are infamous for trying to pursue that Bollywood dollar, and it always blows up horribly in their face because, surprise, American audiences aren't interested in the same things that they are with Bollywood.
We should watch a bunch of kaiju movies while I'm visiting, and we should do Donzon's Visiting.
Yes. Next week, in fact, my little brother, Sean, whom you in the chat would know as Donzon, a.k.a. the Murder Machine, will actually be here. And consider that we actually are we're pretty close to time. And yeah, I kind of don't want to repeat myself here. Next week, when Sean is here, we're going to be doing another game night. We're going to be playing Horrified once again. Greek Monsters, because he was on the phone. He called in when we played that on the show.
Yeah.
And we got our butts beat 6 ways past Sunday. So hopefully he'll be here in person. He can play with us and help us, and we can actually win the game for a damn change of pace. Maybe Jesus will be here. I don't know. But yeah, I have been your host, Kristoff N. Chester. We got the bishop over there in the corner, my faithful companions, Famine and Gluttony. The kobold left, even though he showed up at first with a knife for some reason.
Well, you scared him away.
Well, usually he waits until there you are, you little bugger. Usually he waits until I say something to him to pull out the knife and try to stab me. But anyway, thank you for watching, everybody. Hopefully you had a good time with this one. Like I said, it was a bit disjointed because, again, I was expecting Jesus to be here and for him to chime in and talk a bit. But anyway, next week, Sean will be here. Will be my little brother Sean will be here. Student of anthropology from Tulane. Sean Chester will be here with us. We'll be playing Horrified Greek Monsters. And then maybe, because he's going to, I want to say he's going to be here for 2 episodes. We could do that. We could do Obscure Cinema the week after. But in the meantime, boys and girls, yeah. Oh, geez. Yeah, the Dragon Ball Z references all through the night. Anyway, though, boys and girls, you're just sitting there plotting, Dr. Bible.
What? Who's Sean?
Oh, yeah. Anyway, everyone.
For 10 days.
Yeah, he will. Yeah, so I think he will be here for 2 episodes. But anyway, everybody, we'll see you next week. And keep checking the shadows.